Hi, everybody. This is our lecture on Chapter 10 for our Legal Issues for Entrepreneur course. Chapter 10, we're going to be discussing e-commerce sales and consumer privacy. Just going to go through the PowerPoint for you and just kind of clarify things as we go. So let's look at our PowerPoint, and we're going to advance our slide. So the first thing in this chapter that is discussed is the question of what actually is a good. So the government defines the goods as all things, including specially manufactured goods, which are movable at the time of identification to the contract for sale. In other words, anything that's physical that needs to be sold can be considered a good, and if it's identified as a good and it's also something that's movable as a good, is considered a good. And those are important because early on in the law we need to define what is the difference between a good and a service. As you all know, our economy is primarily more service oriented now than it used to be. I know in the midst of economic downfalls and economic challenges, sometimes that can be a bit of an issue. Because we're not manufacturing as many goods. So we tend to import a lot of our goods because of cheaper labor. And that becomes a big problem for our economy. But basically, identifying what is actually a good is very important for the law. So, when we are, and this particular chapter talks a little bit about e-signing and when we're online doing a lot of our goods and services, purchasing things online, oftentimes we need to sign some kind of a contract. I was a co-signer for a lease recently, and I received the lease in the mail. It was a lease for an apartment up in Philadelphia, and I was just a co-signer or guarantor of the lease for someone else. And so I had to do e-signatures. So when the book talks about e-signatures, and there was a lot of discussion when technology started to get ahead of us a little bit in regards to what's legal and what's not, because you didn't physically sign a lease, but does that make that enforceable? Well, in the e-sign act, it actually does. So in the e-sign act, if you look at your PowerPoint here, it says almost any mark or process intended to sign an electronic contract or a record will constitute a valid electronic signature. So any kind of a mark. This includes a name typed at the bottom of the email message. It can include an official digital signature, which there is software out there that you can actually make a digital signature. It can also include smart cards, your thumbprint, a retinal scan, and even voice recognition. So if you use your voice and it recognizes your voice, it can be used that way. And again, that act is always changing and evolving because, as we know, the technology continues to change as well. So the book goes on to discuss a little bit about what warranties are. So when you guys get into business at some point, you're going to want to have some kind of a guarantee or warranty to support your products or your services. That's just good business. And quite frankly, it makes you competitive with other businesses because providing some kind of a guarantee or a warranty certainly will give your business an edge over companies that maybe are not interested in doing that. So when we talk about warranty, we talk about different things. And in this particular slide, we're talking about an express warranty. An express warranty is an explicit guarantee by the seller that the goods will have certain qualities. So you're basically saying that the goods that you're providing will have certain qualifications or qualities to that particular piece or item that a buyer is purchasing from you. So the seller, to be a warranty, the seller must first make a statement or promise relating to the goods and provide a description or a sample or a model of the goods. So you often see that when you buy a product, it'll come with written information about what's included in the kit, or what are the items that were included in the kit. That's all part of that warranty. So if you have, if you're putting together a model and it's missing certain items, you can send it back for a refund if certain things were accidentally left out of the box. So in those areas, it can be that kind of a promise. It can be description, a model, or sample must become the basis of the bargain, meaning that the buyer must have relied on those to make a purchase decision. So you've described something. You can see that on Amazon all the time. It also, the book talks about puffing. That's if a seller is merely expressing an opinion about the quality of goods, then the seller has not made a warranty. And we see that a lot in like Amazon when you look at people who talk about a product or give a rating to a product. We'll talk about they're just expressing an opinion about that particular product. They might say they really liked it, but that doesn't imply a warranty. That is merely a consumer's opinion about a product. That's considered puffing. It's not illegal to puff, but it has to be listed under opinion. So when you're doing something on Amazon, when you're looking at ratings, those are they're supposedly customer or consumer remarks or ratings. And so that is considered puffing. That's not part of the warranty of the particular product. What about if the product is defective? The product, if it's a defective product, the injured party must prove that the product was defective when it left the hands of the seller or the defendant in that case. So it's something that was not caused defects because of handling of the product after it left the seller. And the defect made the product unreasonably dangerous. That's a hard thing to prove. Again, unreasonable can be a difficult thing, but to prove a defective product, the defect made the product unreasonably dangerous. There are really two types of defects that are talked about in this section. There's a manufacturing defect and a design defect. The manufacturing defect is, I see a misprint on that, the flaw in the product that occurs during production, such as a failure to meet the design specifications. So the product was designed correctly, but in the manufacturing process, someone made a mistake or a machine made a mistake. In those areas, they are considered a manufacturing defect. In a design defect, that occurs when the product that is manufactured properly according to the specs that was given to the producer, but the design was improperly done, or there was a poor choice of materials that makes it dangerous to the users. In those areas, it's design defects. So manufacturing defect, again, happens when the manufacturing of the good, but the design was good. In a design defect, it means the overall design was done incorrectly, but the manufacturing was done per the spec of the design. There are defenses against a suit. So if someone brings a lawsuit against you in regards to those, there's actually 5 different areas. We'll look at the next slide for number 5. But these 4 right here in front of you, the first is the assumption of risk. So a person voluntarily and unreasonably assumes the risk of a known danger, so the manufacturer is not liable for the injury. So, there's assumed risk in anything that we, do. Some are more risky behaviors than others. So, for example, an oil company who produces gasoline for us, if we put gasoline in an improper container and explodes, or we put it in a backyard fire for fun and things catch on fire, obviously the oil company is not liable for that because it's misuse of that, and the person voluntarily is taking on that risk because they're dealing with a flammable product. Number 2 is comparative fault. The plaintiff contributed to the injury, so in that area, the plaintiff contributed to the injury as well. So the manufacturer is still somewhat liable, but less amount of liability to the manufacturer because the person that was using it also contributed to the fault. An abnormal use of the product, again, we're not liable as manufacturers or sellers if somebody does something stupid and they use it in an improper way. So abnormal misuse of the product. State-of-the-art defense, that shields a manufacturer from liability if there's no safer product or design possible. Right now I'm making this video during the coronavirus, and they're coming out with new tests and new machinery in which to do tests more quickly. They're coming up with new vaccines. There's nothing out there that's safer for that at this point. So the companies that are putting them out are not liable because there's nothing safer that's out there. The last one is called preemption. In those circumstances, and this is a rare occasion, the federal law will preempt or override claims based on state law. So although there are state laws related to these, it's still the federal law will override that. Again, a very unusual case, not something that you really need to commit to memory, but federal law will trump over, no pun intended, will trump over state law as well. The book finally moves on to this last section. We talk about advertising. So we talk about warranties. We're talking about our goods and that we're not misrepresenting our goods. And in advertising, we know that there are misrepresentations, and the book talks about that. So the first one is quality claims. Advertisers should not make quality claims unless they have reasonable basis for making them. So if they're making a claim about a quality of a product, they need to have a reasonable reason why they're saying that. Number two is false testimonials or mock-ups. These are endorsements or testimonials from people who do not use the products is illegal. So you can't claim to show a product demonstration as well when it's actually simulation. So you'll see that, and this is going to make you more sensitive when you watch television and you see advertisements. You're going to see people are paid testimonials or paid endorsements, or this is not really a doctor, or this is a simulation of what you see on your screen. You know, they will put those underneath in small print to be able to not be accused of false testimonials or false mock-ups. The third one is FTC guidance for endorsements or testimonials. So any company running an ad featuring a consumer conveying exceptional results must disclose that the generally expected performance to consumers. What that basically means is if you watch somebody and they make a claim about, you know, this specific toothpaste made my teeth specifically white, or 10 times whiter than they were originally, they will also put under in small print, this is not typical for most consumers. Most consumers would not experience this type of result, those kinds of things. Again, that's kind of preventing that term puffing as well, where a consumer or an advertiser might say or make claims that are just a little bit more grand than what the average consumer would experience. So they would put small print saying this is not what an average consumer would experience. The next is deceptive pricing. Any practice that intends to mislead or deceive consumers about the price they're paying for a good or a service. So, you know, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of advertising out there now that kind of tiptoes around that. Deceptive pricing, saying things like simply pay a separate fee. So you can get a second one. So we'll give you a buy one, get one for free. So you can get two for the price of one, only pay a separate fee. Those are a little dangerous. So be very careful about making sure that your advertising is upfront and honest. And then the last one is called bait and switch, which I'm sure you've heard that term before. That occurs when an advertiser refuses to show an advertised item, or fails to have a reasonable quantity of the item in stock, or they fail to promise to deliver the item within a reasonable time, or discourages employees from selling the advertised item. Quick story, I went to a company one time that sold electronics. They advertised a television that was incredibly inexpensive for the time. I went over to the store to look at that item, and lo and behold, they had no more in stock. Even though this was an early in the day, they had no more items in stock. They had, you know, mysteriously sold out of the item, and they were quick to show me other items that were similar. That really is kind of bait and switch, trying to get people in to buy other products. And I pointed that out to the salesperson and left, that I felt that was bait and switch, and I could actually have filed a complaint. So, you know, make sure that when you advertise something that's special priced or something, that you have enough that's reasonably expected, that you would have enough in stock in order for meeting the customer demand. That's it for chapter 10. I hope this helps you understand a little bit more about that chapter. Keep reading your book, and we look forward to talking to you about chapter 11 very soon. Take care, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Bye-bye.